moving on to number 4 now, and we're flying through these. I'm loving it. The Calgary Flames. This is an interesting one because obviously the big trade that went down between Matthew Tkachuk and Jonathan Huberdeau. They also got Mackenzie Weegar in return, and they lost Johnny Gaudreau. So if we look at this team, last year and we think, okay, who's like a shoo-in for captain? It's probably Matt Tkachuk. And we're not really having this conversation, and he's got the C, and we're laughing. But now it's a bit weird because without Tkachuk as the clear front runner, they have a ton of good options, in my opinion, starting with perhaps Huberdeau. So, Case, who do you think makes a lot of sense to be the captain of the Flames?
Man, you say Huberdeau, but I think that's just such an aggressive move to bring a guy into your team, sign him, and then just make him the captain right away. I think if I'm like a Michael Backlund or someone like that on this team, I'd be like, okay, I mean, thanks. I guess I'll just kick rocks. But
yeah.
Certainly makes a lot of sense. He just decided to live and play in Calgary forever. So you know where his heart is, and well, I guess maybe where his bank account is, but obviously he chose to play there. It means something to them, and he's going to be there forever, and he's going to be playing a lot of minutes, and he's going to be kind of leading this team when it comes to playing level. So he certainly makes a lot of sense to me. Also a Canadian guy. Maybe makes a little more sense in Montreal to be the captain, but that's impossible. So we'll have to deal with him in Calgary. But frankly, I think it should be like a Michael Backlund. He's been on this team for a long time. He's been that like underrated player on this team that's kind of always just flown under the radar and put in work. So I could certainly see him being the guy, but Huberdeau makes a lot of sense for me.
Yeah, so Huberdeau wasn't even my pick. I just see the comparable like instantly as a guy who they bring in, sign for a shitload of money, and then could give the C to. And who's the obvious comparable? John Tavares, who makes $11 million, got the captaincy right away, and it was a big to-do. And some other players felt like they got snubbed. Like I look at a Michael Backlund. If this does happen, I look at a Michael Backlund like a Morgan Riley, a guy who's kind of been there forever, was maybe expecting the C and then didn't get it. So I don't know if Huberdeau is actually what they're going to do, or if it even makes sense, or if they're even considering it, but I just see the comparable right away.
He was the captain of St. John's in the QMJHL 2 years in a row. He was like a Team Canada captain at one point, assistant captain at one point. He wore the A in Florida for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Like certainly he has the resume of a captain. So
yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's not insane. I could definitely see it happening, but I think if Daryl Sutter has any say in the matter, I don't know who makes captain decisions, but I would assume it's the entire organizational group and not just one guy. So if Daryl Sutter has any say in the matter, I think it's going to go to a guy like Elias Lindholm. I think Lindholm makes a lot of sense because he's just Mr. Reliable out there. He can put up a ton of points. He's one of the better defensive forwards in the league, plays a very responsible two-way game, and like that's pretty much for me just what you need on the ice to lead by example. And he's one of your better players. He's been there, longer than a guy like Huberdeau, obviously, and I just think it makes a lot of sense for Lindholm to kind of slot in now as the guy, as a part of the original core who's still left over, to say like, hey, I'm still here. This is my team. Like, I think he would really want it, and I think he'd make a good captain too.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple underrated guys too. Like I said when looking at Calgary, I had a bit of a hard time because they've got a ton of guys, like depending on what they want to do. They've also got a guy like Noah Hannafin, who's a rock on the back end. I don't know if he gets considered. And even a Chris Tanev, who's a veteran, who's been around, who still plays really, really high minutes for this team and shuts it down on the back end. So, I could see either of those reliable D-men being in consideration, but I think the real contender for me has to be Elias Lindholm, and I think the Flames do name a captain this season, no matter.
I think they have to make a captain almost as like as a message, like sending a message that like we didn't have to rebuild this team or retool it. Like we didn't have to scramble. This is our plan. This is who we have, and this is who we're going with. So I think a captain makes a lot of sense. If it were up to me, I'd go to Blake Coleman. I think that Pickles is literally captain material. No one plays harder on this team than Blake Coleman, and also a good guy off the ice. So I would love to see that. And he's there until the end of 2020 or the start of 2027. So
yeah, that would make sense. The Flames have a lot of guys locked up long term on like decent deals that could be in consideration. So could definitely see Coleman. I thought about bringing him up too. I know you like him.